What's it got to do with me? Why do I need to get involved? It's someone else's problem. I'm staying out of it. There's nothing I can do about it anyway. How many times have you heard that? How many times have you said that or thought it? Because there's simply so much going on in the world, and there seems to be so little that an individual can do to affect any change at all. Many of us simply respond by doing nothing at all. Life will go on without us, we reason, so why get all bothered and upset about things we can't change? Parashat Matot gives us a bit of a Mussar drasha, a moral lesson about when to get involved. At first glance, it's not so obvious, but scratch at the surface and it stares out at us. Parashat Matot addresses the thorny issue of the nullification of a woman's vows by her husband. He can do this, but only if he cancels her vows immediately upon hearing them. If he delays in silence, her vow becomes irrevocably binding. Let's put to one side for the moment the difficult problem of the power of men to override the vows of women. That's for another day, although I'm not minimizing its importance. But do you not think it's a bit odd that the Torah insists that the husband either uses his power instantly or loses it forever? Why? If he has the authority to annul her oath, then why can't he choose to exercise that power later on? The answer is given by the Gemara in Masei Yevamot, and that is shtika kehoda'a damye. Silence is like assent. Once the husband knows what his wife has sworn, he becomes a participant in that oath and is a part of it. At that point, he can either object immediately, disassociating himself from her words and thereby nullifying them, or he can remain silent, which effectively links the husband and the vow. Shtika kehoda'a damye. Silence is assent. How often do we see or hear acts of injustice or cruelty or abuse and we remain silent? A derogatory joke in our presence, an act of selfishness or a harsh word said to a sensitive person, or simply reading of political or individual oppression on the internet. All of these things demand that we choose a side. We can either verbalize our opposition immediately, or through our silence, we become allies of the act or the words that we ostensibly abhor. There is no such thing as being parav. Neutrality does not exist. Shtika kehoda'a damye. Silence is assent. Rabbi Yehuda Louis, the great Maharal of Prague, who lived in the 16th century, wrote, quote, "While a person may be individually pious, such good will pale in the face of the sin of not protesting against an emerging communal evil. Not only will such piety not avert the impending evil, but such a pious person will be accountable for having been able to prevent it and not doing so." In the midst of the dark ages of his time, the Maharal understood that his obligation as a human being, as a Jew in covenant with God, was to represent God's light and God's passion, despite the powerful forces of evil which opposed him and his beliefs. So we too must get off the fence and open our eyes. There is injustice all around. Do we see the poor, the needy, the troubled, and walk on by saying, "It ain't my problem"? And that's what happened at the time of the destruction of Jerusalem by the Romans. You can read the famous story of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, where the rabbis stood by and did not object to the public shaming of an individual, thus leading to the disaster of destruction and exile. Shtika kehoda'a damye. There is no neutrality. Silence is assent. Shabbat shalom.